My name is Alex Brown. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for Advanced Micro Devices.
Well, Alex, congratulations on your award and welcome to Horizon 2013. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure for me to be here.
So, high performing procurement award winner. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, first of all, I wasn't aware of the award, but quite frankly, I attribute this award to my team and the work that they've done working with Zycus to get us up and running on the three different solutions that we've integrated into our procurement process over the last 2 years.
So tell us a little bit about the procurement, the three solutions that you've got in place now.
Yeah, well, first of all, we had a gap in our procurement technology, and that gap was around spend analysis.
Okay.
And so we had been trying to get approval for the last couple of years on the spend analysis tool, and finally we engaged with Zycus. But during the time that we were having initial discussions, we realized that Zycus had a complete suite of tools. And so we started talking about the next tool, which was supplier management. We had a homegrown system for the last 10 or 15 years, and we saw this opportunity to make a change. And so once we started talking about supplier management, we realized that, well, wait a minute, we have an e-sourcing solution from a competitor, and why not rolling this solution in? And Zycus was very accommodating in regards to providing some flexibility in regards to how we could implement that capability. So we ended up with all three of those suites. All three of those solutions related to the suite of offerings that Zycus provides.
You know, and you're from a high-tech company, so tell me a little bit. You'll hear players in the market talking about the value of a best-of-breed solution and then integrating best-of-breeds. And you chose not to go that route. You chose to go with a solution suite provider with Zycus. So tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, what drove that decision, and then what the value of a full solution suite has meant to your organization rather than using the best-of-breed point solutions.
Yeah, so we've had experience on both sides. We were an early adopter of procurement solutions technology from back in the late 90s. So we had been focused in that area for some number of years. We also have a ERP solution that's in place, and quite frankly, I found it to be not only expensive, but also very unwielding in regards to trying to implement the next module. And a lot of times we found out we already owned the module, but then we had to pay a fortune to a consultant to implement and integrate the module. So the solution that Zycus provided some very specific and unique characteristics for us that were very important. One was related to cost. The cost was, in fact, reasonable in regards to the expectations we had relative to how we were going to use the product. Secondly, though, it was the flexibility. And flexibility comes in the form of both the implementation and that we didn't have to convince the IT organization, although it required some selling, and we didn't have to convince our IT organization to allocate a significant portion of their budget to make this happen for the procurement organization. And then third was that what we found was the ease of use. And once we showed our stakeholders the comparison to some of the capabilities that we had in place from previously, our stakeholders were actually pulling to help us get the implementation done and the agreement that we could implement the software capability.
Tell us about the return on investment and what that's meant to your organization and to your bottom line.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we focus on as a corporation is ROI relative to any spend in the company. And quite frankly, my CFO is always speaking about how we're going to contribute to the gross margin of the company. And one of the things that's happening now, we are in a transition of product types. And we're going from a high gross margin type product to a lower gross margin product. So the CFO is looking to the procurement organization to contribute at a much higher level. So when we went in and talked about ROI, the first thing that the CFO was looking at was, how are you going to achieve this? How are you going to make this payback happen based on the cost of the solution? What we were able to do was to show, based on the capability of the current offerings that we had, that we could significantly improve the return based on the visibility that we would have, first of all, from the analysis tool. We have 50 different locations in the company. We have sales offices all over the world. We have manufacturing operations all through Asia, and at that point in time had some in Europe. We had no way of, particularly from a point solution, of looking at how much we were spending at any given point in time. We were able to lay out a very comprehensive plan and an ROI argument based on the fact that we'd have greater visibility, along with the e-sourcing capability, that we would be able to mine a greater percentage of the savings that we were not achieving based on having the Zycus platform in place.
So it would be a fair statement then to say that the Zycus tool enabled you not only to capture more of the data, get greater visibility, and therefore reach a higher ROI than the solutions you had in place, but any other vendor that you evaluated in the market as part of your processes.
Yeah, and quite frankly, we have a very specific process that we use to evaluate suppliers when we're going to make any sourcing decision. And we use that process in regards to looking at whether we were going to select Zycus or any of those other vendors. And quite frankly, once we had gone through that process, Zycus stood out. Zycus stood out not only from the capability standpoint, where we measured the effectiveness of the system, but Zycus also stood out in regards to what we thought that they could do for us relative to flexibility. And so we use a 5-step process in our selection for our selection criteria. 1 is technology, 2 is cost, 3 is quality, 4 is flexibility, and 5 is service. So the technology was there. It was a no-brainer. From a quality standpoint, we hadn't engaged yet, so we looked at some benchmark information. We talked to some other customers, and so we were able to validate from a quality standpoint that we would be okay. Cost, we negotiated like everything else we buy. We negotiated, and I think we found a point that was reasonable for Zycus and also reasonable for us. We've been able to prove out over the 2-year period of time that both from a flexibility standpoint and a service standpoint, Zycus stands out head over heels of anyone else and all of the other vendors that we spoke to during the sourcing process.
What are your future plans with Zycus, and how do you see your partnership between AMD and the Zycus organization growing over the coming months and years?
Well, first of all, I think that we will, in fact, have a long relationship. One of the next products that we're looking at is contracts management. We have a contracts management tool that's been in place for at least 10 years or so now. And that tool was implemented from a legal perspective, the legal organization.
Got it, yeah.
And while we use the capability, it is not specific to some of the requirements that we have from a procurement standpoint. I think that Zycus has an excellent opportunity in regards to displacing that tool. We're also very interested in the new capability, the P2P capability that was just demoed earlier this morning. And I think that has a significant level of applicability relative to the way we run our business. So based on at least those additional opportunities and the 3 solutions that we have in place, I see a long and growing relationship with Zycus.
Outstanding. Well, Alex, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much also.